The night that should have been ordinary. The night Kale Mercer fed the wounded alien girl, he thought he was simply helping a stranger survive. He had no idea that single act would one day change the fate of 2 civilizations, and give him a wife from another world. On the dusty frontier colony of Virex 9, survival was never easy. The sky was always red from the twin suns, the wind carried metal dust across the plains, and the outpost machines broke down more often than they worked. Kale Mercer was not a hero. He was a mechanic. His job was simple: repair broken machines, keep the power running, and try not to die from boredom or malfunctioning equipment. The galaxy was at war, but Virex 9 was supposed to be too small and too useless for anyone to care about. That was the plan. But the universe rarely follows anyone's plans. A strange discovery in the storm. That evening a violent sandstorm rolled across the colony. Warning alarms echoed through the outpost while colonists rushed inside their shelters. Kale had been outside repairing a damaged drone tower when the wind started screaming across the desert. "Perfect," he muttered while tightening his goggles. Another day on Paradise. Then he saw something strange. At first he thought it was debris moving across the sand. But debris does not breathe. Half buried in the dust lay a figure. Kale hurried toward it. As he brushed away the sand, his heart nearly stopped. It was not human. The woman lying in the sand had silver-blue skin that shimmered faintly under the storm light. Her armor was cracked and glowing from internal damage, and strange alien symbols pulsed along its surface. She was clearly a warrior. And she was dying. Kale looked around nervously. Helping unknown aliens during wartime was usually a terrible idea. But leaving someone to die felt worse. So he sighed. Well, this is probably a mistake. The simplest act of kindness. Kale knelt beside her and pulled out his last emergency ration from his belt pouch. A compressed protein bar. Technically food. Barely. He held it out carefully. "Hey, I don't know if you understand me," he said slowly, "but you look like you could use this." The alien woman's silver eyes slowly opened. They were sharp, ancient, and surprisingly calm. For several long seconds they simply stared at each other while the sandstorm roared around them. Then she reached out weakly. Her fingers closed around the food. She took a small bite. Kale smiled. "Good sign. Eating usually means you're not dead yet." She said nothing, but something in her expression softened slightly. It was the first moment of trust between 2 completely different species. Neither of them realized how important that moment was. The warrior who followed him. Kale helped her stand. She was taller than him, though clearly weakened. Her armor flickered as if barely functioning. "All right," Kale said. "My station is nearby. Medical supplies, shelter, terrible coffee, the full human hospitality package." To his surprise, she followed him without hesitation. Step by step they walked through the storm toward the colony outpost. Behind them, far above the clouds, something enormous moved across the stars. Warships. Silent. Watching. The first words. Inside the medical bay, Kale tried scanning her injuries. The machine immediately shut itself down. "Okay, rude," Kale muttered. The alien watched him quietly. Finally Kale tried asking the obvious question. "So, do you have a name?" The alien woman studied him carefully. For a moment Kale wondered if she truly could not speak. Then she finally answered. "Lyra." Her voice was soft but powerful, like music made of metal and wind. Kale blinked. "Well, Lyra, welcome to humanity's worst frontier colony." For the first time, she smiled faintly. The war arrives. Hours later the colony alarm screamed. Emergency signals flashed across every monitor. Kale rushed to the command console. His blood turned cold. Multiple unknown warships had entered orbit. Huge, advanced, and heavily armed. A distorted alien transmission filled the room. "Attention, colony. Return the stolen warrior immediately, or this world will be destroyed." Kale slowly turned to look at Lyra. She stood calmly beside the window, watching the sky. "You should not have helped me," she said quietly. Kale sighed. Yeah. I'm starting to realize that. He crossed his arms. But since I already gave you my last meal, I guess we're in this together now. Lyra looked at him with something new in her eyes. Respect. You have no idea what that act means in my culture, she said. Kale raised an eyebrow. Hopefully not a war declaration. Lyra shook her head. No. Then she said something that would completely change his life. It means you claimed me. Kale blinked. I'm sorry, what? In my people's law, Lyra explained calmly, offering food to a warrior at the edge of death forms a sacred bond. Kale slowly realized what she meant. Oh no. Lyra nodded slightly. Yes. Kale rubbed his face. So, let me get this straight. I tried to save your life. And accidentally married an alien warrior princess. Lyra tilted her head thoughtfully. That is, a simplified explanation. Outside, massive warships darkened the sky. Inside the small colony outpost, a tired human mechanic realized something important. Human kindness had just triggered an interstellar crisis. And somehow, he was going to have to fix it. The fleet above the colony. The sky above Virex 9 was no longer red. It was black. Black with shadows. Massive alien warships floated silently above the small human colony like predators circling wounded prey. Their crescent-shaped hulls reflected the light of the twin suns, and glowing blue weapons lined their edges. To Kale Mercer, they looked like a row of knives waiting to fall. Inside the command room, the colony alarms screamed non-stop. Colonists ran through the halls carrying supplies, sealing doors, and preparing for the worst. The defense turrets outside activated slowly, their old motors whining like tired soldiers forced back into battle. Kale leaned against the console and stared at the tactical display. 23 warships. Against one tiny colony. Yeah, he muttered quietly. We're definitely going to need a bigger plan. Lyra stood beside the window, watching the sky. She looked calm. Too calm. The truth about the warrior. Kale finally turned toward her. Okay, he said. Time for honesty hour. You wouldn't happen to be important to them, would you? Lyra remained silent for a moment. Then she nodded once. I was their commander. Kale blinked. Commander. Yes. She spoke calmly, but there was something heavy in her voice. My people are called the Vilari. For centuries we conquered star systems across this region of the galaxy. Kale folded his arms slowly. So those ships up there are my former soldiers. Kale let out a long breath. Of course they are. A warrior who refused war. Lyra continued quietly. The Vilari believe strength gives them the right to rule weaker civilizations. Kale shrugged. Classic Galactic Empire stuff. But I learned something during the wars, she said. Her silver eyes turned toward the colony outside. I saw planets burn. Entire species erased simply because they could not defend themselves. She paused. And I began to question our purpose. Kale studied her face. So you defected? Yes. You ran away from the Empire. I refused to lead another genocide. Kale nodded slowly. Good reason. But then he looked back at the display. Unfortunately, your old co-workers seem very motivated to bring you back. Lyra's voice became cold. They will not allow a symbol of rebellion to exist. Which means, Kale said, they will destroy this colony just to capture you. Lyra did not deny it. The human problem. The colony commander burst into the room, breathing heavily. Mercer. Those ships are charging weapons. Kale glanced at the tactical screen. Bright energy signatures flared across the alien fleet. The commander's face turned pale. We can't stop them. Kale scratched the back of his head. Yeah, about that. Lyra looked at him. What are you doing? Thinking, Kale replied. Humans are really good at that. The commander stared at him. Thinking won't stop orbital cannons. Kale smiled slightly. No. But creativity might. Humanity's greatest weapon. Humans were not the strongest species in the galaxy. They were not the most advanced. They did not have massive war fleets or ancient alien technology. But they had something else. Improvisation. Kale rushed to the engineering console and began typing quickly. "What are you doing?" the commander asked. Kale grinned. "Weaponizing stupidity. A plan no alien would consider." Outside the colony stood dozens of small service drones. Old machines designed to repair structures and move cargo. Completely harmless. Unless someone rewrote their programming. Kale uploaded new commands to the entire drone network. The commander looked at the screen in confusion. "You're sending maintenance drones?" "Yep." "At a war fleet?" "Yep." "That's insane." Kale shrugged. "Trust me." Lyra watched silently. Curiosity glowed in her silver eyes. The attack of the repair drones. Hundreds of drones launched into the sky. Tiny machines compared to the massive alien warships. From orbit, they probably looked like dust. The alien fleet ignored them. Until the drones reached the hulls. Then they activated. Repair drones were designed to cut open metal, remove damaged parts, and access internal systems. Within seconds, they began drilling into the outer hulls of the warships. Not attacking. Repairing. Or at least trying to. Alien confusion. Inside the alien fleet, chaos erupted. Sensors reported hundreds of unknown mechanical units attaching to the ships. Automatic repair protocols activated. Internal systems opened access ports. Security systems shut down temporarily. Exactly as Kale expected. Back in the colony command room, Kale watched the results with satisfaction. "Alien technology is very advanced," he explained. "But it's also very logical." Lyra tilted her head. "And humans are not logical." Kale grinned. "Not even a little." Turning their fleet against them. The drones uploaded a virus through the repair ports. Nothing destructive. Just one simple command. All weapon systems. Diagnostic test. Across the alien fleet, every weapon powered up simultaneously. Then fired. At the nearest targets. Which happened to be each other. Brilliant beams of energy exploded across the sky. Alien warships struck neighboring ships in complete confusion. Explosions lit the clouds. Half the fleet suddenly believed it was under attack. The other half attempted defensive maneuvers. Formation collapsed instantly. The warriors' realization. Lyra stared at the chaos in orbit. Her former fleet, one of the most feared forces in the galaxy, was now accidentally fighting itself. All because of a handful of human repair drones. She slowly turned to Kale. "You defeated them." "With maintenance equipment." Kale shrugged casually. "Never underestimate bored engineers." Lyra's eyes softened. "For a species considered weak. Humans are terrifyingly clever." Kale nodded proudly. "Yeah, we hear that a lot." But the war was not over. Then the sensors beeped again. Kale looked at the screen. One enormous ship remained untouched. The flagship. It slowly moved forward through the chaos. Its weapons began charging. Lyra's expression darkened. "That ship carries the Imperial Warlord." Kale sighed. "Of course it does." The massive vessel aimed directly at the colony. One shot from that weapon could erase the entire settlement. The commander whispered nervously. "We're out of tricks." Kale stared at the screen. Then he looked at Lyra. Then he smiled. "Well. Good thing humans never run out of bad ideas." And for the first time since the fleet arrived, Lyra began to believe something impossible. Maybe, just maybe, humanity was exactly the ally she needed. The weapon that could end everything. The Vilari flagship slid through the smoke and debris like a calm predator. While the other warships spun in confusion, some damaged, some firing wildly. The flagship stayed steady, untouched. On Kale's screen, one warning kept flashing. Primary cannon. Charging. The colony commander's voice cracked. That shot will vaporize us. Kale didn't answer right away. He stared at the numbers, the power curve, the firing arc. His brain moved into the same place it always did when something impossible broke in his hands. The place where panic became a puzzle. Lyra stood beside him, tense but controlled, her silver eyes fixed on the sky. That cannon is designed to crack cities. There is no shield here that can stop it. Kale swallowed. Then we don't stop the cannon. He looked up at her. We stop the person who thinks it will work. The warlord's demand. The comm system crackled. A deep, cold voice filled the command room, translated into broken but understandable English. Human colony. You harbor my traitor. Return her, and I will grant you a quick end instead of a slow one. The commander stepped forward. We're neutral. We didn't start this. The voice almost laughed. Neutral is a word weak species use to delay surrender. Lyra's jaw tightened. Kale saw it, pain behind her calm. This wasn't just an enemy. This was her past. Kale leaned into the microphone. Hey, warlord guy. Silence. Then the voice returned, sharper. Who speaks? Kale Mercer, Kale said. Resident mechanic. Part-time disaster. Full-time problem. The commander shot him a look that screamed, stop talking. Kale kept going. You want Lyra? Come get her. A pause. Your bravery is meaningless, the warlord said. Kale smiled slightly, though his hands trembled under the console. Yeah, Kale replied. But my stupidity is legendary. Lyra glanced at him, confused. Kale lowered his voice. I need the flagship closer. Lyra understood instantly. You are baiting him. Kale nodded. I'm human. We've been annoying larger things into making mistakes since we lived in caves. The human trick the Vilari didn't understand. Kale ran through the outpost like a man racing a countdown, because he was. He grabbed an emergency beacon from storage, tore out its safety chip, and rewired it using a scrap coil and a broken sensor plate. The commander followed him, breathing hard. What are you doing? That won't stop an orbital cannon. No, Kale said, but it will stop a warlord's pride. He slapped the device onto the roof of the comm tower. Lyra joined him outside as the wind whipped dust around them. Above, the flagship moved closer, slowly, confidently, like it wanted them to feel helpless. Kale toggled the beacon on. A burst of energy shot upward, an imitation of Vilari military code. Not perfect, but close enough to grab attention. The comm channel screamed with new signals. Lyra's eyes widened. That is, a Vilari challenge call. Kale shrugged. I guessed. I've been watching how your ships talk to each other. Lots of ego. Very dramatic. I figured you people probably have a come fight me button. Lyra stared at him like she was seeing a new species entirely. Humans learn enemy language during an attack. Kale smiled. We learn faster when we're scared. The flagship shifted. Its cannon charge slowed. Then the warlord's voice returned, furious. You dare mimic our sacred signal? Kale leaned into the rooftop. Missy, I dare a lot of things. Mostly by accident. The flagship moved even closer. Exactly what Kale wanted. Boarding a monster. Kale's next plan was simple, terrible, and absolutely not approved by any sane military handbook. He was going to board the flagship. The colony had one old cargo shuttle, barely spaceworthy, mostly used for dumping scrap into orbit. Kale and Lyra sprinted into it while the commander shouted behind them that this was suicide. Kale strapped into the pilot seat. Lyra sat beside him, her damaged armor now humming with controlled power. You cannot fight that ship alone, Lyra said. Kale checked the fuel gauge. Good news. We're not fighting the ship. He lifted a small metal case from the floor. Inside, a portable station core, basically the outpost's brain. A stubborn, outdated, very loud AI that had spent years managing power rations and complaining about humans. Lyra frowned. What is that? Kale patted the case. This is Rook. The AI speaker crackled. I heard that. I am not portable. I am important. Lyra blinked. Your machine shouts. Kale grinned. It's part of the charm. He slammed the shuttle controls forward. The shuttle launched, screaming upward toward the flagship as its massive hull filled the sky like a wall. The Vilari thought humans would beg. Automated defense systems targeted them. Lyra raised her hand. A thin wave of energy pulsed outward and warped the sensors for a heartbeat, just enough for Kale to slip through a maintenance gap along the ship's underside. They latched onto the hull. Magnetic clamps locked. Kale's breath came fast. Okay. Step 1 complete. We are now attached to a cosmic murder machine. Rook barked through the case. This is a poor decision. Kale opened the hatch. Cold air rushed in. A narrow service tunnel waited beyond, filled with faint blue light and humming power conduits. Lyra drew her blade. It glowed softly, not for show, but for survival. They moved. Quiet. Fast. Like thieves inside a sleeping giant. Human ingenuity meets alien perfection. They reached the main weapons bay, the heart of the cannon system. It was beautiful in a terrifying way. Clean lines, perfect geometry, energy channels like rivers of light. Vilari engineering was designed to be flawless. And that was the weakness. Flawless systems assumed predictable enemies. Humans were not predictable. Kale opened the case and plugged Rook into the nearest interface. The alien console rejected it instantly. Rook shouted. Rude. Their security is insulting. Kale worked quickly, twisting 2 wires together, forcing a feedback loop that made the interface think it was running a diagnostic. Lyra watched his hands. You break it to make it listen. Kale nodded. That's basically how we do everything. Rook finally connected. The RE's voice shifted, delighted. Oh, this is fun. I am inside their weapon system. Kale whispered, can you shut down the cannon? Rook paused. No, but I can do something much funnier. Kale's eyes widened. Do it. The cannon fired the wrong message. Instead of firing its planet killer blast, the cannon's power surge redirected, forced into the flagship's comm grid. Across the entire Vilari fleet, every comm channel suddenly broadcast one thing. A single human message, amplified by a weapon meant to terrorize worlds. Kale's voice, recorded from minutes earlier, echoed in perfect alien translation. Come get her. Then Rook added a second line, fully unsupervised. Also, your warlord has bad hair. Lyra's mouth opened slightly. What did your machine just do? Kale stared at the console as alarms began screaming inside the flagship. It started a cultural incident. Outside, the fleet froze. Then the warlord's voice roared through internal speakers. Find them. Footsteps thundered down hallways. Security drones swarmed. Kale grabbed Lyra's hand. Time to run. They sprinted through the tunnels as the flagship shook, systems fighting each other, confused, overwhelmed, angry. Rook yelled behind them through the case. I'm still insulting them. They deserve it. The moment Lyra chose humanity. They reached a central chamber, and the warlord was there. He was larger than Lyra, armored like a statue, his eyes like polished stone. Power radiated off him, calm and brutal. You, he hissed at Lyra. You shame our empire. Lyra stepped forward, blade ready. The warlord glanced at Kale with disgust. And you are nothing. A soft creature of meat. Kale's throat tightened, but he raised his chin anyway. Yeah, that's kind of our brand. The warlord lifted a weapon. Lyra moved between them without hesitation. In that instant, Kale understood. She wasn't protecting him because of a bond or a law. She was protecting him because she wanted to. Because the human who fed a stranger in the storm had shown her another way to live. Lyra spoke clearly, her voice steady. This human gave me life when my own people would not. That is not weakness. The warlord sneered. Then die with him. He fired. Humanity's defiance. Kale didn't dodge. He threw himself sideways, not away, but toward an exposed conduit on the wall. He slammed his toolkit into it. Pure instinct, pure desperation. The conduit burst. A wave of energy flooded the chamber. The warlord's weapon shorted mid-shot. Lyra lunged and struck, not to kill, but to disable. Her blade sliced through the warlord's arm brace, locking his armor in place. He fell to one knee, furious, trapped by his own perfect technology. Kale's hands shook as he stared at what he'd done. A mechanic's move. A stupid, simple move. And it worked. Lyra looked at Kale, breathless. You are insane. Kale managed a weak grin. Yeah. But we're still alive. Rook chimed in from the floor. And I am still insulting the warlord. The fall of the fleet. With the flagship's weapon grid corrupted and its command structure collapsing, the fleet began to retreat. Not because humans destroyed them with superior firepower, but because humans made them look foolish. In Villari culture, the warlord's humiliation spread faster than fear. Ships broke formation, commanders argued, and the Empire's unity cracked. When Kale and Lyra escaped back to the colony shuttle, the sky above Virex 9 was clearing. The warships pulled away like a storm, finally deciding to leave. The commander watched in stunned silence as the fleet vanished into the stars. He turned to Kale. How did you do that? Kale shrugged. Exhausted. I annoyed them until they made mistakes. The commander stared. That's not a strategy. Kale smiled. It is for humans. The bond that became real. Later, under the quiet twin suns, Lyra stood beside Kale outside the outpost. The wind was calmer now. The red sky felt less like a warning. Lyra spoke softly. I told you the food you gave me formed a bond. Kale rubbed the back of his neck. Yeah, about that. Lyra looked at him with a small, real smile. It is not only law. She placed her hand over his, warm, steady. It is choice. Kale swallowed, suddenly feeling more scared than he had during the battle. So, what happens now? Lyra's eyes held his. Now, she said, we build something my people never imagined. Kale exhaled. A mechanic. A rebel warrior. A loud AI with an attitude problem. And a galaxy that had just learned the most dangerous truth of all. Humans might be small, but humans never stay helpless for long. And if you push them into a corner, they don't surrender. They improvise. They unite. They win.